Hi and welcome. I'm your host, Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I'm so happy to have here with me today a good friend and colleague of mine, Mamoon Yusaf. Welcome, Mamoon.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. Great to be here.
It's always so great to connect with you, Mamoon. Mamoon and I are personal friends and colleagues, and we go way back. But I'm going to give you a little formal introduction of Mamoon just to tell you a little bit more about him. Mamoon Yusaf is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and relationship coach. With over 5,000 hours of coaching experience, he's the go-to resource for Muslims who want to find love, transform their marriages, and become inspiring role models for their kids. He's the author of the #1 best-selling book, Inside the Soul of Islam, host of In the Moment with Mamoon podcast, and his mission is to make our homes the most loving places on earth. I love that. That's a beautiful vision. I also love listening to Mamoon's podcast, Inside the Soul of Islam, because he has this very soothing voice. It's very soothing when I listen to that, Mamoon. The voice is amazing.
Thank you.
He's created over 20 seminars, training programs, and the Sky TV show Quran Coach, in which you can watch people's spiritual lives and relationships transform as he coaches them using his unique, powerful psychological switch approach. And maybe you can share a little bit of that what you share today. Mamoon's programs, seminars, writings, and podcasts are a source of inspiration for thousands of happy individuals, loving couples, and spiritual seekers of all faiths across the world. To join in the fun, we'll be inviting you to click on the link that's going to be in the description. And Mamoon is offering a complimentary workshop class called Meet Him and Marry Him, where you'll discover 3 counterintuitive secrets to attract love that lasts. So we'll tell a little bit more about that as we go on. I'm the host of Love Life Coaching and this YouTube channel, and I'm interviewing these men in addition to doing all the man panels that I've been doing for an upcoming book that I'm writing to help women understand more about men. It's been a deep dive that I've done as a part of my work over the last few years. And Mamoon, I feel like it's really allowed me to help women out there understand more about men. And the goal here is, like you said, so that we can have loving, peaceful, happy, satisfying relationships. Totally. The more we learn about each other, the more we learn about what might be going on, rather than making assumptions or having expectations that they don't know about or those kinds of things, the more we can create that win-win scenario. So I was sharing with Mamoon before we started, the one experience I don't have, even after interviewing all of these men, is the experience of actually being a man. So I'm going deeper into this by interviewing some men. And so I'm grateful for Mamoon to take his time to be here with us.
Yeah.
So Mamoon, I want to start with just kind of a broad question and let you kind of run with it here.
Sure.
Based on your experience of being a man and based on your relationship history, which I know a little bit about, I would love for you to share some of the key insights you've learned from being a man that you think would be valuable for women to understand about men in general, recognizing we're all individuals. And also some of the key things that you've learned from your relationships, specifically your romantic relationships, dating, marriage, those kinds of things. I just really want to go deep and tap into your wisdom here.
Well, good luck trying to find some, but we'll do our best. Okay. So
I have no doubt we'll find some.
So yeah, this is a great question, and you kind of, you got my mind thinking in this direction before the interview. Like, what types of things are almost like really obvious for men, but then women don't necessarily immediately realize that that's what's going on in his mind. So a good way of explaining the first one is you might have heard the old saying, the most attractive part of a woman's body is her smile, right? And for a man, and I believe this is absolutely true. And it's not because the man isn't absolutely interested in other parts of the body, but it's because of a kind of deep-rooted psychology that a lot of women who I've coached and spoken with, it's oftentimes it's taken for granted, right? And the big part of the psychology is this: a man's worst fear when it comes to dating and relationships is approaching a woman he's really attracted to. It's like you could have a man who's so successful in business, in his career, he's on a mission, he's wealthy, he's a great catch, he's everything. But he himself may not realize that, because as much as he's involved in his business and his career, his mind is over there, right? And when it comes to dating and relationships, if a woman is really attractive, or if he finds her attractive, the hardest thing to do is just go over and say hello, go over and introduce himself. And then there's this signal that a woman can give that just said, hey, it's okay. You can come and talk to me, right? And it's this magical smile. And it is literally attractive. Like when it shows up, a man will be attracted. Now, even if he was interested in her anyway, he had all of this inner resistance to going over and talking to her. Basically fear, insecurity. And I know for some women, it's like, yeah, we want him to have all the fear and insecurity to get him to get over himself so that he actually mans up. Totally get that. And having coached a lot of men in dating as well, I got to say, it's like we cannot overstate what a big fear this is. Like a man's worst fear is he goes over and then she's like, oh God, you're such a creep. Why are you talking to me? I'm married. Go away, you freak show. Like these are the movies playing in his mind. And meanwhile, the totally happy, innocent, single woman who is in the right place at the right time and is just waiting to be approached, it's not going to happen because the man is getting tripped over on his own fear. So that's the first big one. I got to say.
Can I say something here?
Absolutely.
You reminded me of a couple of things with this. I can remember one guy that I interviewed a while back who said, most guys don't feel like James Bond inside. I'm like, that's a great way to say it, right?
That just in one sentence said what I just rambled for 5 minutes about. Exactly.
No, I love that. I love that. I mean, I sometimes call that green lighting with women when I say, give him a green light, make him know that it's safe to approach, because I've had a lot of guys express exactly what you've just said. Like, this is a real deep, scary fear to approach a woman, because the creepy guys, they don't care if they appear as the creepy guys, but the normal guys don't want to appear as the creepy guys.
Exactly. And that's why the green lighting, great metaphor, great way of saying it. That's why that's so important, is because the regular guy who's not an absolute player, who's not going and hitting the bar with clubs every night and is totally promiscuous, the regular guy doesn't have that much experience going over and saying hi to a really attractive woman for no other reason than the fact that he is attracted to her, right? So it's huge. Now, I was thinking about this before our call, and I thought to myself, so I'm originally, like, my parents are from Pakistan, right? I'm from the Indian subcontinent. Think about this. This is such a deep-rooted fear that the entire Indian subcontinent created an entire system of marriage whereby the man doesn't have to go over and approach a woman and smile and say hi, right? Instead, they're like, okay, if you like a girl, what you do is you tell your parents tell their parents, the families will figure it out, and then we'll have a family meeting together, and then you meet in that context. And hopefully by then, they'll have the courage to say hello when it's all socially condoned and everything. Like, that's what a big deal this is. It's like entire cultures are built around trying to protect the man's feelings from getting crushed when he goes over and says hello and then finds out that she's not interested.
Mamoon, that is like so amazing to think about it that way. And that's so true. I've never really thought about that, but that's so true. That's incredible.
This is literally why we have arranged marriages, is to avoid this problem. Obviously, there are other problems as well that we're avoiding, but that's the big idea.
Yeah, and I can remember, this is just one other funny thing before you make your next point. I can remember coaching a woman a few years back. We were talking about this very thing, the eye contact, the smile, giving him the green light. And I said, just, notice yourself when you're out there in the world, in public, and how you're showing up, what your demeanor is, what's going on with your face. She said, this was hilarious. She said, not only was I not smiling at men, I was giving him the death stare.
Yeah, especially if she's attracted to him, right? It's even worse. I had a client recently where I mentioned this, I was like, hey, I love I'm going to start using green lighting. That's such a great way of describing it. But I was talking with a client about this, and I was saying, hey, when you're out and you're in the places where men are and everything, like, tell me about how your approach is, what your mindset is. And she's like, oh, and I mentioned the thing about smiling and that kind of thing and eye contact. And she's like, oh, yeah. My friends tell me I have an RBS, which is a resting something face, and I don't want to repeat in public, right? But I was like,
the B word.
The B word, right? I thought it was hilarious, and I'd never heard that before, and I heard it from my client. This is how I stay in touch with the young'uns, right? My clients are telling me how the dating world is these days. And this is the other huge thing, which is we might have it's kind of funny that the Indian subcontinent invented arranged marriage. Well, the Western world, to avoid the same problem, just invented Tinder. They just invented apps that basically avoid the same problem, where you don't have to have the magical moment of connection at the beginning because you can just prearrange everything on the app. Which kind of bring this to the next point, which might be a little bit controversial. Now I will preface this by saying, Michelle, you did ask to be inside the sick, twisted mind of a man. You asked for it, right?
Yes, I did. Okay, I take full responsibility.
Okay, here we go. So if anybody has a problem with it, blame Michelle for this. Okay, not me. Now,
mea culpa. I got it.
Okay, so here's the second big thing that, I'm sure women have some understanding of this, but I don't know if they know how big of a leverage point they have here, right? Especially in dating and in relationships, and actually in marriage too, but it's certainly in dating, we've got to talk about the big thing, the elephant in the room: sex. Sex is leverage. In dating, especially in this modern world, especially with apps and things like that, the huge thing here is a man will do almost anything to have sex with a woman he's attracted to. Almost anything, right? And this, after you get over how sick and twisted it is, right? Right, this actually gives women a huge amount of power that they don't realize they have. Like, they might realize that they can get attention from a man and hook up with him relatively easily, but it gives you enormous leverage throughout the duration of the relationship, especially going from the early phase through to a long-term committed relationship. Now, I know that this is different in different cultures, and I'm, primarily most of my clients are Muslim women, and we've got very clear values and rules and things like that. But forget about the specifics of the rules for a minute. We want to talk about the principle of sex is leverage. What do I mean by that? I mean, the sooner and easier it's given away, the sooner the man's going to take his foot off the gas. Mm-hmm. And if the goal, the real power this gives a woman is this means that the woman gets to decide up front what she wants. And she gets to express it up front as well throughout the duration of the early phases of the relationship. Because if a woman is really clear, look, I want a long-term committed relationship. I remember once upon a time when I lived in Spain, I was talking with a few ladies, and they were like friends of the family kind of thing. And they were saying, we just discovered this great thing. Like, we're on all these apps, and I lived in Barcelona in Spain, which is, at the time at least, it wasn't the most conservative city in the world, right? And these women were saying, wow, we just discovered that when you're on, and I think the app at the time was Tinder, I don't remember, but it was one of those apps, right? When you're on there, there's this whole thing where you can select, I'm interested in a long-term relationship. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, what were you selecting before? And literally they thought that if they selected long-term relationship, there'd be no men there. So they were kind of selecting short-term, hang out, have fun, hook up, whatever the terminology is. And it's like, it's so much harder. It's like an uphill battle to go from giving the man everything he wants up front right at the beginning to, okay, now let's talk about having a long-term committed relationship. His out is just so easy. He's like, no, I'm good. And his likelihood of wanting it is so much reduced. It's like dramatically reduced. So much so that throughout history, in different cultures, literally, if a man wanted sex, he would have to actually commit to you for life in order to get it. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, right? I'm not saying it's the only way. I know different cultures are different, different belief systems, whatever. But if you want a long-term committed relationship, then get the man to a point where he's ready and willing to have a long-term committed relationship before giving him the very thing he wants. Like, get the commitment up front. Now, here's the thing. The main reason women don't do this is because they're worried they're going to lose the man.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, I don't want to mind read too much here, right? This is from what I've heard from clients and from people, but here's the thing. If you lose the man at the point at which you say, I could, like, if you're an attractive woman, you could hook up with anyone anytime. And a man knows this, right? Well, if, like, you've got the leverage then and there, if the bottom line is the man's values are such that he's not after a long-term committed relationship, the sooner you lose him, the better. Because he's playing a different game to you.
Right.
And it only leads to a different path. Now, what happens a lot because of apps and things like that is people hook up. Then women tend to want a longer term relationship. Like men in Barcelona at the time, I can't speak for all men across the whole city, but at the time I was like, this is such a bad deal for women. Right. Because, yeah, okay, you might go through a phase where you just want to hook up and everything. Cool. But long term, if you want a long term committed relationship and you want to have kids and that kind of thing, this is a really bad deal for women that everybody's just hooking up really early, because it's a lot harder. Firstly, for a man who's been super promiscuous, it's going to be a lot harder for him to kind of tame himself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe the case for women as well. I don't know. But also, it's like, to go from one to the other is a lot harder, right? Versus to get the man to commit to a long-term relationship. Like, and I'm going to go back to this. Women really take that, so many women don't realize how important this is. The man will do anything. Once he's into you, once he's attracted to you, you have all the cards, you have all the leverage. You can almost get to determine how the relationship is going to play out right from the point at which he's attracted to you. And you give away all the leverage as soon as you've had sex. It's not so black and white, but that's where the leverage is. Now, look at this in a more positive, inspiring way. I think everybody realizes human beings have a pretty strong sexual drive, right? Mm-hmm. And at a certain point in a woman's life, she has a strong drive to have sex and to reproduce. So here's the big idea. What if you could take the full force and power of that man's sexual drive, and what if you could channel it towards, not only towards you, but towards him having a long-term committed relationship with you? Like, that puts a lot of energy and power into a place where the relationship can play out long-term. And what does this mean in practical terms? The funny thing is, in practical terms, it means something so simple, everybody overlooks it. It means that the highest leverage, that the easiest thing for a woman to do if she wants to take control of the relationship is, don't be afraid to have the big conversations, especially the ones to do with commitment and relationship and sex and where it's going. Like, literally, if the man's into you, he knows every other man is going to be into you too, right? Especially at the early phase. And don't be afraid to have a big, like, I've spoken with a lot of women who see the big conversations for men are not that big of a deal, right? Like, it's almost like he just wants to know the code to unlock the treasure that is all of the pleasure that you will have together if he can figure out how to make it happen, right? He just wants to know the code. You've got the code, and you've got to tell him what the code is. So the code is, so we've been dating for a little while. I just want you to know that before things go any further, I only want a long-term committed relationship. If you want to hook up with people, that's fine. Hook up with whoever you want. I can hook up with whoever I want, but that's not why I'm here. If I wanted to do that, I would already be doing it, right? That's not what I'm interested in at all. The minute the guy knows that, either he's going to lie through his teeth. Hopefully not, but that's when if you're a real like sociopathic, narcissistic kind of crazy person. Or he's going to be like, that's just not what I'm looking for right now. Now, the fear for a woman. Now, I don't know about this. Maybe you can tell me this, Michelle, but I have an inkling or a theory that the fear for a woman after finding a guy who is potentially a good guy and a good match and potentially a long-term partner, I have a theory that the fear of a woman of losing that guy is as strong as the fear of a man of approaching the really attractive woman in the first place. Right?
I think it definitely can be, especially for women that have maybe gone for a period of time where they haven't met someone that they've seen much potential in. I think that it's easy for a woman to project out and start thinking this is the guy before she really even knows him, because there's attraction. She sees the potential. And if it's been, kind of a dearth of good opportunities for a while in terms of who she sees as potential candidates, I think she can get very focused on that. And that can be very dangerous, because that's when a lot of women do what I call unholy giving. They give too much, too fast, too soon, before there is the emotional connection and the level of understanding and knowing enough about each other to determine whether it justifies that. And it's about sex for sure, but it's not just about sex. It also is putting her time, attention, focus, energy, love, affection, everything into him.
When he's made no commitment. He's made no commitment, right?
Right. And so that is a very vulnerable state for a woman. And now I want you to, and I agree with you, this can be something that can be tricky to navigate. And so for women, what I always tell them, because you and I work with women that want the real deal, they want a real relationship. In most cases, that leads to marriage and commitment and building a life with someone. And so one of the things I tell women is, we all think we have boundaries and standards until they're tested, right? But you have to have a firm commitment to yourself about what is right for you, what you really want for your life. And then, like you said, you have to be willing to have what feels like courageous conversations. Yeah. And so I encourage women, even in the earlier stages, to say, where do you see yourself in the next, 2 to 3 years in terms of your life, your career, your relationship goals? This is a very safe question to ask. It's open-ended. You're not leading him to say what you want. It's almost better for a woman to ask a man that question first, because then he hasn't heard her say, because I've also had men tell me, if you do give the code away, he knows what to say. He knows what to say that is going to win you over. So it's almost better to have, we're not talking about game playing here. We're just talking about being smart and protecting your heart and making sure you're being wise, because going down the wrong relationship trail, you and I both know this, Mamoon, can take us way off track in life for a long time. It can be a difficult thing to recover from, rebound from, and get your footing again. And so, these are important decisions. There's so many people out there, philosophers or quotes or things that say the person you decide to partner with, especially for marriage, is the most important decision of your life, because it affects everything. Yeah. Here's one question I want to ask you about this. And I'm actually really glad you brought this up, because I think we do need to go here. I think this is a really important piece to talk about. So some men have shared with me that when the sex happens early on in a relationship, before there's really those conversations about, what we both want and seeing if you're aligned in that way. And also, before you've really had a chance to establish an emotional connection. Men have told me that having sex early on can actually short circuit the emotional connection, because then the relationship becomes focused on hooking up, having sex, rather than really in him investing in getting to know this woman, her heart and soul and mind, and not just her body.
Well, I can imagine how that's the case. I've spoken with guys unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for me, I don't have a wealth of experience on this, right?
Right.
Personally. I've spoken with guys who say that um, it's kind of like they have two avatars in their head. There's women they can hook up with, and then there's the woman they're going to marry, and they're not the same woman. And I know that this could be very heartbreaking for women who are listening, because you don't want to, like, people realize, and to be honest with you, this whole topic of love and marriage is just heartbreaking. You're just gonna, and so I don't know at what point I might say something that somebody goes crazy about, and it's like, but for a lot of guys, there's the women they can hook up with, and then there's the woman they're going to marry. Now, the chances are you don't want to even marry the guy who's been hooking up with lots of randomers anyway, right?
Right.
You want somebody
Right.
whose values are aligned with yours. And it's funny what you were saying about the code. Like, if the man knows the code, then he knows what to say, and then he can crack the code. And that's why, people say and think and believe that a lot of religions are just really old fashioned, because it's religion and it comes from thousands of years ago and everything. And I work with a lot of Muslim women, and it's like, dude, if part of the code is he has to actually marry you before he gets sex, he ain't gonna try and just crack the code. Like, that is such a huge, that his parents are there, there's a wedding, there's everything. If you then divorce, you take half of his money. Like, that's a pretty hard code to crack, right? I think if he's really just after sex, at some point he's going to be put off. Now, again, I know culture is different, not everybody's going to do that, but there is a method to the apparent madness of religion, right? To the different spiritual traditions, people even saying, look, have a real commitment. Because in its most essential form, marriage, in the Islamic tradition anyway, it's a commitment that we're going to be together, and it's literally like legally approved mutual consent. Like, we are going to be together, and we're saying it in front of our friends and family and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a social thing and the whole society's involved, it's not an easy code to crack. Because then, if you go in just with the intention of getting divorced, that's a whole thing in and of itself. So that's one part of it. Now, you asked me a question. Oh yeah,
does it short circuit the emotional connection? And my sense is that this is true. Yeah. Because I feel like kind of coming back to what you said earlier, I feel like it takes away a lot of the motivation of him. I mean, if we're going with old-fashioned words, of him courting her, or him romancing her, or him really winning her heart, not just her body. It almost feels like you were saying. It almost feels like a bad deal for the woman.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. And to be honest with you, that's something that is throughout the lifetime of a relationship, even within marriage, right? Because this is kind of a masculine feminine thing. What the man really wants, he's goal focused, he's goal oriented, he's after climax, right? He wants the goal. And for women, as I understand it, they want more to be romance and the emotional connection, and to feel like they're really deeply loved, and there's intimacy and there's connection. And from that, she'll get more and more turned on, right?
Right.
So it's like going in two different directions. Now, if the woman just gives the man everything that he wants right at the beginning, his likelihood of being romantic and trying to win her heart and emotional after that, super reduced. Like, the amount of effort, and this is a big problem that women face, like Muslim women face after marriage. It's like, hang on, before we got married, he was putting in so much effort, and we were going out, he was doing things and everything. And now it feels like, does he even love me? And I do a lot of relationship coaching with people who are married, and the easiest thing to do is to sit down with the guy and slap him around the back of the head and be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? You got what you wanted. Now make sure you're giving her what she wants. And even the simplest instruction to the like, okay, you want to know how crazy men are? Check this out. Almost every married woman who I've coached around the marriage has said at some point, like, something to do with the emotional connection is love. Like, I don't know if he really loves me. He's not putting in an effort. He's not doing things for me, that kind of thing. And I could all but guarantee, give me 10 minutes with the guy and I can turn it around. And she's like, don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about? How's that going to happen? I'm like, trust me. Here's how basic it is. This is all I say to the guy. I say to the guy the thing that a Sufi spiritual master of the Islamic tradition said to me before I got married the second time. Right. So he sits me down. I just written the book Inside the Soul of Islam, and I was taking it to scholars and, spiritual people and saying, hey, check out, proof the book, make sure it's all good. So he was reading the book. I went to him for that. And then he said, so you want to get married? So I understand you want to get married. I was like, yeah. He said, he's Sudanese, so he has this beautiful African accent. But you were already married and you got divorced, correct? I was like, yes. He said, so how do you know you're not going to get divorced again? I was like, oh, I was taken aback a bit. I was like, I thought we were here to talk about the book. But he said, how do you know you're not going to get divorced again? And I said, and I was about to stop. My ego was like, oh, but I've learned so much since then, and I know more about presence and and the psychological switch and everything. But I was like, no, I'm with a very wise person. I should shut up and hear listen to what he's about to. I knew he was going to drop some kind of wisdom. And he said, this is what you do. From now on, he said, I know you're a busy man. I know you write books and you do seminars and you travel the world for your seminars and things like that. It does not matter how busy you become. You must always give 1 hour a day to your wife just to talk. He says, every day, no matter what, you give 1 hour. That is the right she has over you. He said, the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, said, the best of people are the best to their wives and the best to their families. If you want to be the best to your wife, if you want to do the bare minimum of be the best to your wife, you're going to talk with her for 1 hour a day. And I said, okay. And then he said, and if you do not, and you get divorced, it is totally 100% your own fault. I was like, whoa, no one had ever shared it with me like that before. And lo and behold, he's absolutely correct. Every day I spend 1 hour talking with my wife. Right now, my wife's traveling with the kids and I'm at home. And every day, no matter what happens, it's in my calendar. 1 hour I've got scheduled. I make sure we're going to spend at least an hour every day talking. But it's better. If the relationship, if something's up, if we're disconnected, if things are going wrong, if we're starting to argue or fight or something like that, I literally look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, look, it's been 3 weeks and I didn't make an hour a day to talk. Of course, we're going to start having arguments and things like that. So yeah, the thing of it, emotional connection being part and parcel and coming before physical connection. Absolutely. The man wants physical connection. Great. Make sure you're getting the emotional connection before you give it to him. Mm-hmm. Because it's so, and yeah, again, one of the things that women might not realize, every single one of the women who I've advised this to, where I've said, hey, just tell your man this and then frame it in a certain way, or tell him to speak with me for 10 minutes and I'll explain it to him. Every single time it's been a turnaround. Now, here's the thing. It's not about the hour, right? It's about the hour of only talking. And during that time, there's emotional connection. And that's what ends up saving the marriage, right? But the emotional connection doesn't even have, it's funny, like last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was at a Tony Robbins conference and it was his, he has this really famous productivity system called the Rapid Planning Method, RPM. Mm-hmm. And he said something that really, like, I must have heard him say this before, but it hit me this time. He said, you know what time is? Time is emotion. And I was like, time is emotion? What the heck does that mean? And then after exploring it a bit, I got it. It's like, of course, time is emotion. It's the emotional state you're in determines whether something feels like it's taking forever or it goes like that. When you're emotionally connected during that hour, it's going to feel like 5 minutes and you're going to be so into each other and you're going to want to have more and more of it. So this is how, like, it's so funny, but in a man's little limited left brain logic, being able to schedule in an hour a day, and then I've done my kind of duty for the relationship to keep it alive, it works wonders. Absolute wonders. right?
Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful and incredibly insightful. And yeah, I think there'd be a lot less relationships that break down and a lot less divorces if that were practiced. And this actually brings up another idea that I think is important just for us to mention here, which is that I think relationships are living, breathing things. And they require, like a plant, it requires sunshine or water to live and thrive. A relationship requires attention. And Mamoon, it's so funny because I tend to be very verbose. I'm a talker, right? My husband is a man of few words. He's an attorney, he's a CPA, accounting, he's very left-brained. And I'm like Miss Creative. He says, I got the entrepreneurial spirit. He says he got the entrepreneurial spirit, right? We're totally different people. So for him, he's a man of few words in most cases. When he does speak, he speaks things that are important. But I need to process by speaking, right? So this is something we've had to learn in our relationship. So I'll just say to him, I'll say, Benjamin, I just need you to listen to me. You don't have to solve this. You don't have to even give me advice. Or, in some cases, I'll want his opinion or advice. But I just let him know what I need. And he'll give me his attention, his focus. Because I think in our modern world, attention and focus is one of the rarest commodities.
100%.
So what you're talking about is incredibly powerful in a relationship or marriage.
100%. And hopefully this goes without saying, but if you are practicing this and you're spending an hour just talking, just connecting, and again, it's just talking. So this doesn't count any intimate time you're having. That may come later if you're a lucky guy, right? But hopefully it goes without saying that you can't have your phone anywhere near you when you're doing this, right? Unless you're in different cities and you're talking on the phone. That's a killer. And I hear that. Well, I mean, I'm sure every coach now is hearing this constantly, like the thing with phones and the whole distraction and everything like that.
Well, I'm sure, seen it, Mamoon, like I have. You go to a restaurant and you see couples and they're sitting across from each other and they're both on their phones.
Yeah. What's the point in date night? Right. Literally. What's the point in date night? And what's the point in the hour of talking if you got those distractions? And that kind of brings us on to there's a couple of inner things that aren't as obvious, and it may not even be as obvious to men or women. There's something that I like to think of as internal attraction and external attraction, right? External attraction for most guys is mostly physical, right? But it can start a relationship, but it's not going to make a relationship work. To make a relationship work, you need something much deeper and much more powerful, which is internal attraction. And that, I want to think of it in a couple of ways. There's a spiritual way of thinking about it and an emotional way. One way internal attraction can happen is that the man and woman just connect on a very deep emotional level, which, by the way, only happens through those conversations we were talking about. If you don't have the deep emotional connection, it doesn't matter how attractive you are. Even the most attractive woman, like the supermodel one, like the Jessica, I don't know, whoever the hot people are these days, right? Back in my day, it was Jessica Alba. Maybe it still is. Also, women don't age in Hollywood anymore. I don't know what is happening. Their faces become more plasticky, but somehow they don't age. But anyway,
right.
Physical attraction doesn't matter how attractive a person is. There's always going to be a more attractive woman, and even if the other woman isn't as attractive, just being different has an intrinsically attractive quality, right? So that's only going to get you so far. Internal attraction comes through emotional connection. Like, something I've noticed is that if a man and a woman go through something big emotionally together, like the loss of a family member or something else that's just really deep and emotional, if a woman sticks by the man through that, it's very likely internal attraction is turned on, and that's it. It's just they're done. They're together, right? I can think of examples of this in my own life and people I know and love. It's like, I don't know how much of my own private life I want to give away here, but basically, when something deep happens emotionally and you're there for each other, that's like a bond that is going to last. It's much more likely to last than the superficial external attraction. That's one big thing I wanted to share. And the other thing is, I mean, most women know that men in our society today, and even traditionally, but traditionally they had other ways of dealing with it, but men generally aren't taught what feelings are, that they're important, what you're meant to do with them. Do you even have them? You get a lot of men who are very less brain and they're engineers or they're accountants or something, and they never even think or feel about anything. They'll never talk about their emotions, wouldn't even know the right labels for them. So another way that internal attraction can develop is through the process of connecting with a man emotionally and almost helping him increase his emotional intelligence, right? So one way that I have told many clients to do this, and I do it myself, and I think you know it as well. In fact, yeah. So Christian, our mutual friend Christian Michelson used to call it the peace process. Mm-hmm. I call it the inner salam method. Eckhart Tolle calls it like being present to the pain body. But there's a very powerful thing that we can do. And what it does is, this is, I said there's an emotional component and a spiritual component. This is where it becomes almost spiritual, where you notice the feeling that you're going through. And it will be noticed usually as an energy in the body. And you pay attention to it. And you kind of observe it without trying to make it go away until the energy underneath the feeling naturally dissipates. And then you're actually free from the feeling. It's like you feel it so completely that there's nothing left to feel. Now, firstly, if there are guys watching, if you know how to do this, you've got like it. I'd almost consider this a superpower for men and women, because women are a lot more in touch with their emotions. So if they knew to do this process, they could probably do it a lot more quickly and easily, because it's like, oh, that's all that is. It's a feeling, and I can observe it without getting caught in the thought feeling story, because then it goes on forever, right? You quiet the mind, become present, notice the feeling, it dissipates. Well, that's how you actually let go of a negative feeling. That's how you actually transcend it. Now, when a couple gets good at this together, it's like you can overcome anything. All of your fears are just fears of feeling. Even the guy who's afraid to approach a woman, if he can observe the feeling and let go of it, then he's not afraid to go and approach the woman anymore, right? If the woman can let go of her fear of having the big conversation about, is the guy really interested in a long-term relationship? When she lets go of the fear, it's a lot easier to have the conversation. And when a couple learns to do this together, the type of attraction that's formed is a lot more deep and a lot more powerful. Now, there's no guarantees in life. I'm not saying that you won't do this and then separate and part ways. That happens too, right? But you gain something. There is something more powerful. There's something that's even more of a blessing than a life partner. And that's something that's more of a blessing than a lifetime relationship with your partner is an eternal relationship with God. It's way more powerful, and it will be there with you for life. And if you had to go through some breakups in order to find it, you will never regret it. You'll never regret it. And that's certainly what happened for me, right? I had to go through falling in love, breaking up, getting divorced. Then I found it. And what did I find? It was a way of not repressing all the feelings, but embracing them and transcending them, and realizing that on the other side is the peace of God. It's literally, that's why it's called the peace process, or the inner salam, which is the Arabic word for peace method. Because on the other side of that, there's this just absolute tranquility that, and I want to finish this thought here, it's a tranquility that is pure presence, which means your whole attention is in this moment. The present moment is the only moment you can connect with God. It's the only moment. People talk about presence like it's a state of mind. It's more than a state of mind. It's a state of bringing God to mind. God is beyond thought and beyond words and beyond form and description. And the closest we can get to that is by quietening our minds. And it's really hard to do that if you've got all of these insecurities and fears and everything that are coming up and all the inner chatter and talk. And underneath all that is this negative feeling. And that's where the inner salam method. Now, if you can do that yourself, you'll be a much better partner. You'll show up in a much better way. You'll eject you'll attract energetically a much higher quality partner, someone who's not bringing drama to the situation, but is bringing pure presence and love. So that's on one level, but on another level, you can get your partner to do this with you. You can master it yourself and then do it together. It's like you've won the lottery over and over again every day for the rest of your life. You've got the best. We have a prayer. Dear Lord, give us the best in this life and the best in the next life. And the best in this life, some people say, is presence because of the wonderful feeling of connectedness that comes with it. And the best in the next life is the eternal presence of God. And some people say the best in this life is a wonderful conscious partner. And the best in the next life is the eternal bliss that you experience with that partner. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful, Mamoon. It was beautiful. And I think that it's incredibly powerful. The things that you're talking about here, I think it's an incredibly powerful process. I also believe that, yes, going through and being supportive of each other during difficult and challenging times can bring people together, or it can tear them apart.
Sure.
But in part, we can, in some ways, be in choice about at least how we are approaching the challenges that inevitably come, whether you're single and alone or with a partner, part of a family. Challenges are going to come. I know in my marriage with my husband, Benjamin, some of the things that we've gone through that have been unspeakably difficult have brought us together. But that's in part because we both were conscious about the decisions we were making during that time. And chose to pull together rather than pull apart during those times. And I also think that a man, you talked about men and how a lot of men have difficulty feeling, expressing, acknowledging their emotions, or even being able to name them. If you as a woman can be a safe place for a man to express his emotions, I'm talking about his fears, his hopes, his dreams, his sorrows, his insecurities. If you can be that safe place, you can become irreplaceable to him. That can be so incredibly powerful and such a gift for a man. Because, I mean, Mamoon, I've had men cry to me and say, if we don't have that with you, we have it nowhere. We have nothing. Because for a lot of men out there, they don't have the kind of relationships where they can really share those kind of things. It's more like, hey, dude, or, how about that game or whatever. It's very surfacey stuff in a lot of ways. And that can be fun, the male bonding in that way. From what I understand, that can be fun. But where we as women, we oftentimes will have friends or confidants or others that we can just really be raw and real with. A lot of men do not have that. Yeah. And if they don't have that with the woman that they're with, it can leave a huge, huge gaping hole in their emotional lives.
There is a beautiful, let me see if I can find it. This is the research I wish I did right before this session, right?
You're fine.
Because there's a beautiful verse of the Quran that speaks to this. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so there's a verse of the Quran, like, instead of me doing instead of me doing research right now, I'm just going to paraphrase and tell you what I took from it. So there's a verse of the Quran that talks about how married spouses are like clothing for one another, right? Like your garments that you clothe each other, meaning there are things. And what does clothing do? It shelters you, protects you from the elements. It keeps things private that you want to be kept private, right? It's very intentional. And so there's this beautiful metaphor that marriage is you're like clothing for one another. And the superpower, the thing that a woman can bring to a man, which will mean that he just can't go to another woman, is when she becomes his clothing, literally. And he does the same for her. He's meant to do the same for her. But it's like he can tell her all of his secrets. and she's not including all the dark stuff and the bad stuff, and she's not going to reveal it to other people. That he can come with all of the rawness, which for him is the most embarrassing thing, to be so vulnerable emotionally and like be really hurt or have something that happened when you were a kid and you're like so raw and touchy about it. And if your friends were ever to find out, they'd probably like hit you. What's wrong with you, man? Get yourself together. Pull yourself together, man. But he can take it to his wife. And if she can comfort him through it, because she's got the emotional maturity, because she's got the tools, because she's mastered things like the inner salam method, or prophetic presence is another one, or the psychological search, which we didn't get to talk about yet. But if she can learn these kinds of things and bring it to him, and here's the thing, any personal development seminar anywhere in the world, of the majority of the audience, men or women, we all know the answer, right? 80, 90% women.
Right.
80, right? Including my events, including my coaching, it's always 80, 90% women. And I like the way, one way of thinking about that is because, well, obviously women are smarter. Everybody knows that. But it's the one who's getting the personal development, the one who's getting the spiritual training. They're on the cutting edge of consciousness in that family. They're the ones who are getting the downloads. They're the ones who are sharp enough, who are emotionally intelligent enough, spiritually intelligent enough to realize what's going on. So that's why I'm saying it goes both ways. And if a woman can bring it to a partnership, a man is going to be so locked in with that woman that even if he's externally attracted to another woman, it's just going to remind him he's got better at home. Right?
Yeah, and I kind of compare this sometimes to, women can relate to the idea of they want to feel safe in a relationship. Safety is a high priority. Physical safety, financial safety, just being protected, that safety, that security. And men need safety too, but I believe it's more the emotional safety. And I think sometimes women don't fully realize how vulnerable a man can be when he lets her see that side of himself that maybe he doesn't let anyone else in the whole world see.
Yeah. And one of the big problems is oftentimes he doesn't let his wife see because he thinks there's going to be judgment, and because there will be judgment, right? So it's like, it's a learning curve for all of us. And that's why we're in this together. That's why we're so blessed to have you, Michelle, doing these interviews and helping us understand each other better and figure out what's going on beneath the surface and beneath this surface. There was one other funny metaphor. There's someone who you should interview, maybe not for this series because you're interviewing men, but there's a really smart woman who's a relationship coach, and her name's Annie Lala. I don't know if you know her, but so she had this great metaphor, and it's something that's so obvious. If a woman is single or she's insecure about, how she's going to attract her partner and things like that, and what she needs to do, and we're kind of saying, hey, you've got all the power here because you've got the leverage because the man just wants sex. And, but women start thinking there aren't men in the world, and all the men are bad or whatever. And a big question is, especially with apps and things like that, oftentimes women think that they need to take forward action and be more, go out and get the man and that kind of thing. So a great metaphor that Annie gives, she said, look, the egg doesn't go out hunting for the sperm. She's like, the egg stays right where it is and it just chills and it relaxes. And then the men's fighters need to go out and travel what is the equivalent of swimming across oceans in order to fight each other off and then eventually get to the egg. So don't get it twisted. There is nothing a woman needs to do other than be in the environment, right? So optimize your environment, be in places where you are approachable, and then actually be approachable, which brings us back to the very first thing that we said, green lighting, smiling. That's all the woman's got to do. Everything else, the men need to get over themselves and just take action. And they will if it's green lighted. I wanted to remember, I had it in my notes here, and I wanted to remember not to forget to share that, because it's like women have so many options. And if anything, sit back, relax, let them come to you, and don't be worried about turning someone away if he just wants one thing, because he can only have that one thing with you if he commits to you long term, which means he might go away. Great, turn him away. He's one of the many millions who didn't make it to your egg, right? I just thought the metaphor was really funny.
I like that. I like that. I'm glad you shared that. That's really good. That's really good. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Mamoon. I could talk to you for hours. I love chatting with you, and it's so fun to reconnect.
You're such a good listener. You're such a good listener. I know you say that you're very talkative, and you also bring out the talkativeness in us. So good for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you sharing, and I want to give you a chance, of course, to share a little bit about your class that we're going to link in the description here. And this will be out there available indefinitely. And then I want to just give you a chance to share anything about anything that I could have asked you that you still want to share.
Great. Well, thank you for giving me so much space. I think I shared everything that I wanted to. If there was anything else, I would just say to not underestimate the importance of your own level of consciousness, your own level of presence. Presence is the most attractive quality. It attracts things and people to you more than anything else, right? And all these things are like overcoming your emotional baggage and everything. It just leads to you being in a place where you can be present the whole time. The whole psychological switch that I teach is a way of understanding how the mind works, which leads to a greater level of presence without you trying, right? And that's one of the things that is shared in the masterclass. The masterclass is called Meet Him and Marry Him. It's something that I've been coaching and teaching women for about 15 years now. It's not a 15-year-old class. It's like it's been updated over time, but it's the essence of really doing this whole thing from the inside, where we deepen our connection with ourselves. We connect more deeply with Allah, with God, become our best selves, and then show up as our best selves in the world and attract great relationships to us that way around, versus trying to do everything on the outside to attract the relationship, but on the inside, we're not feeling like our best selves. We're not being present, and we don't feel the spiritual connection. We want to go top down, right? From spiritual connection to naturally attracting relationships. And that's kind of the idea behind the whole approach.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, even though Mamoon is very humble and said we'd have to dig for the wisdom, you can tell he has a lot of wisdom here. And I know that for many of you, listening to his class would be incredibly valuable. So be sure to click on the link and check that out. And Mamoon, I really want to thank you. It's been so much fun chatting with you, and I appreciate your willingness to contribute to my work and to my book, and I hope our paths cross again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege for me to serve. And as I always say for everyone, may the peace, love, and blessings of Allah, whatever you may call it, be with you always.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for watching.